Hi, conscious lovers, conscious connectors. Mayan here. This is my third or fourth attempt to get on Facebook Live today. So if you can join me live and you're here with me, just type live. If you're watching on the replay in our group, type replay so that I know you were here and you were able to join us. Let me know if you're here with me, whether you can see me and hear me okay. I wanted to hop on quickly today just to talk for maybe about 10 minutes, 10-15 minutes about some common core needs that I see come up for couples over and over again, which can actually give you a lot of insight into your biggest long-standing, arguments, and approach them differently instead so that you can actually be more aware of what gets triggered for you on the inside, and find ways of communicating that with your partner. So if you've been following me for a while, you may have heard me say that I believe that when you're triggered, it actually says more about you than your partner. And that doesn't mean that I'm letting your partner off the hook or that they get to misbehave or do things that are unacceptable to you. That's a separate thing for a whole other Facebook Live. But what I want to focus on here today is those times where maybe you felt, ignored or just not appreciated, or maybe you feel like you weren't being remembered, and that set off a whole other cascade of kind of self-triggering stories and narratives and beliefs about yourself internally, which probably compounded the hurt that you were already feeling from something that your partner did or didn't do or said. So again, if you can relate to ever feeling triggered because you felt alone or because you felt disrespected, mistreated, ignored, any of those things, type a 1 in the comments so that I know. And I want you to know you're certainly not alone. There are 5, there's more, but I really wanted to distill this into 5 core needs that most human beings have in relationship, which seem to be quite universal and come up over and over and over again in my work with my clients in my one-on-one program. And I'm going to go through those, and then I'm going to go through some corresponding, triggers that seem to go along with those core underlying needs that we have as human beings, so that you can identify if any of those are getting activated in your relationship and then within yourself. Okay, so let me know if you can identify or relate to any of these. The need for acceptance, for unconditional love, unconditional positive regard, as Rogers might say, for those of you who know Carl Rogers' work. The need to know that the person who's with us fully accepts us. All the good parts, the bad parts, the ugly, the wonderful, all of us, right? As whole human beings. That's a basic human need. The need for respect, the need to feel that our partner or whoever we're close to, has a basic fundamental respect for us, for our opinions, for our preferences, for our feelings, for our experience, for our input, and that we, can have a positive impact on that person. That's another one. So number 1 is acceptance and unconditional love. Then number 2 is a sense that there is respect for us and for what we bring and contribute to the relationship. Number 3 is a sense of belonging. We all want to feel like we're part of something larger than us, that we belong, that we're, whether it's in community or in a unit, that we can be a we, right? That there's an us that's larger than just ourselves individually, and that we belong, to a system, that there's something to lean back into, that we're not alone. So that's number 3. Number 4 is a need for continuous growth and expansion and evolution. As human beings, we have an instinct to continue to propel ourselves, to be the best version of ourselves that we can be at any given time in our development. And we know that psychological, emotional development is an ongoing, lifelong process, right, that continuously unfolds. So we have a need to feel that we're moving in the direction of growth, that we're expanding rather than contracting or being stifled. And lastly, number 5 is hope and trust. And those two kind of go together from my perspective. We want to trust, to be able to trust that there is hope for us, that even in those dark moments where we feel we are contracting, or that there are unanticipated twists and turns and hurt and pain, we want to know that there's still hope for us, that we can still have more, that we can be more, that we can dream, that we can create. That's also an innate human need, which manifests in relationship, of course. So let me know if any of these 5 resonate for you, and if there are any that you would add. And type in the comments which one really speaks to you most, or which one you feel like is very important to you now. I'm going to go through them again. So the first one is acceptance. The second one is respect, a sense of being valued, a sense that our partner is interested in us, is curious about us, can make room for us. The third one is a sense of belonging, that we can be a we, that we can be a unit without losing ourselves, right? We've talked about that a lot. The fourth one is growth, that there's continuous growth and evolution in ourselves and in our relationship. And the fifth one is hope and trust. So the trust that even if we lose sight of hope, we can get back to it, and that we can connect with that, our essence, with our life force, with our creativity, with pleasure, with things to look forward to, with our shared dreams for the future. So those are the 5 core needs I wanted to just go over with you today and remind you of, because I really feel like so many of our conflicts and arguments really come back to one of these 5 things, these 5 needs. They may manifest or sort of come out in different ways, because there tend to be many layers when there's an argument, right? But if you were really to strip away whatever the circumstances are of any given argument, I would bet that one of these core needs is being activated. And so it's really important to be able to know that, because what happens is that when we're left alone with one of these core needs being activated, or when we doubt that we can have one of these needs met in a consistent way, it can spin us into a whole other layer of being triggered, which is, these self-triggering narratives and stories and beliefs and assumptions that we have about ourselves. And that makes it a lot harder to move through any conflict with our partner, because then we're sort of battling on both fronts, right? Internally with ourselves, within our own self-esteem, with our own sense of worth, with our own sense of, do I really belong? Is there hope for me? Will I always feel depleted or deprived? Am I being a pushover? Am I being taken for granted? All of those thoughts start percolating, and it can make it a lot more difficult to then, move back towards our partner and talk with them about the way that we're maybe feeling afraid or hurt or feeling rejected, all of that. So I would like you to be aware of these 5 core needs for you in your relationship, and the ways that they may get activated or triggered, or that you may get scared or worried about any of these 5 core needs being met in a consistent way. And then you can pay attention to, the corresponding triggers that go along with them. Might sound something like, if your partner sounds dismissive to you, you may feel rejected, or that you're not truly being accepted, right? That goes with the first one. If you default to feeling like, I'm always alone, no matter what I say or how much I explain myself or how much I try to talk to her or him, ultimately I'm on my own. That could be a self-triggering narrative for you that goes with, those core needs of having respect and belonging. Another one might be stagnation. If you feel like you're the only one who's growing and changing and evolving and making an efforting or adulting in your relationship, and the other person, you're not sure whether they are, if they're in it with you, that could be a trigger. And then one of the most corrosive ones, which you've probably heard me talk about, is the trigger is cumulative experience, which may trigger a feeling of hopeless resignation or disillusionment. And that is not something that unfolds overnight. It usually takes months or even years of, making attempts to create a sense of belonging, or to create or have respect, to reach out, to your partner, and having those experiences where you still feel alone. But when somebody reaches that level of despair, of resignation and disillusionment, it can be a lot harder to stop those self-triggering narratives, because there's just too many other experiences to counteract at that point. So I would really urge all of you to get clear about what are the areas in your relationship, what are these 5 areas for you, what do they look like, and then where do you feel comfortable and secure, which ones are you working on actively, which ones do you feel like you need to, where do you need to shore up your own confidence internally, so that you don't spin into kind of self-triggering narratives when you're hurt, when you need, support from yourself. And where can you be more thoughtful about your partner so that you don't inadvertently trigger them in these ways, because they're probably sensitive to these core needs, being met for them as well. So I want you to think about any or all of those pieces. How are you, helping your partner to know that he or she is respected and valued and accepted, that, you have a sense of belonging, of mutuality in your relationship, and that there's growth for both of you, and there can be hope and trust for both of you to lean into and be supported by. And where do you get stuck? Which core needs tend to get activated for you, and why? And how can you change your dialogue internally so that at least you're not kind of attacking yourself when you feel alone or vulnerable, and instead you can come and share with your partner why you're afraid or why you're so angry, what that core need is that's coming up for you, and how they could begin to do things differently to help reassure you in those ways. All right, so let me know how that goes. Tell me what resonated with you, what you would add, if anything in particular is really speaking to you today. Let me know in the comments, and I'll be sure to pop back in and see how this lands for you. Take care. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.